AITA for telling my wife she needs to go to therapy to become the mom our kids deserve.
My wife had a crappy childhood. Her mom wasn't great, in and out of prison. She had to raise her little siblings. So with our own kids, I know she overcompensates so our girls can have the childhood she didn't. The issue is, she can't see that our daughters might not want the same things as she did as a kid. She put them in dance and one loves it, the other hates it, but my wife made her do it until COVID hit and the studio closed. When I tried to talk her down, she said that she'd learn to love it. Our oldest, 6, has severe anxiety. She's actually in therapy for it. As a result, she hates crowds. We had her birthday last January and she spent it huddled in a corner and cried through happy birthday, after begging my wife not to make people sing. My wife shrugged it off and said it's part of the experience.
This year we can't do a big party for obvious reasons, but my wife wanted to do a thing where everyone drove up to say hi, decorated their cars and sang. Oldest said no. When my wife tried to push, my daughter said she won't leave her room if they come over. My wife was upset and hurt. She told me she wants to give them the childhood she didn't have. I said that's nice, but our girls do have a childhood. They're not raising each other, neither of us are in prison and we're stable. I said that she needs to let them have the childhood they want. That includes activities, toys, our youngest is a tomboy and that's lead to issues, what they wear, etc. She started arguing and I said she does all of this for herself, not them. I clarified she's not her mom, but she's not being a great one by doing this and told her she needs therapy to be the mom they deserve.
Now my wife isn't talking to me. I wonder if I overstepped. AITA?
NTA. I'm gently going to say your wife is probably not trying to be callous or hurtful to your children because she's overcompensating for her poor childhood growing up with her own ideas of what happy and normal looks like. But let me be clear, she is being those things in her efforts, she is hurting them by not letting them have choice. I applaud you for recognizing this and I hope you can persuade her to do therapy or even offer to do it with her to help her not feel further alienated. I hope it all works out. Best of luck, sir. I'm editing to also clarify that overcompensation is not necessarily a good implication. It can have negative overtones in her aggressive willfulness to push her lost and foregone childhood onto her children. NTA. Her mom was the reason your wife and her siblings didn't have a great childhood, but she seems like she's overbearing, which can be just as negative. You're not overstepping, those are your kids too and you do have a say in their upbringing. She needs to work through her trauma before her kids get older and want nothing to do with her.
NTA. My mom also had a crappy childhood, and resolved to do better. I have PTSD. So clearly she did not. It might be harsh to tell your wife that she's being a bad parent, but she absolutely needs to hear it because this shit will have negative effects on your children. If left unchecked, it can lead to more disastrous outcomes as your kids get older and have more and more autonomy. What will she do if your daughters want to major in something she doesn't like when they go to college, or want to get jobs to have independence? Or LGBT? Will she stop them? There are many parents like this who do in fact try to stop their kids from having independence when they grow up. It's a very real possibility. My mother ignored my chronic pain for years because she didn't want to acknowledge that I'm not the perfect healthy child she wanted. I'm 20 and I might need knee surgery, which of course, she doesn't want me to get. I was deeply suicidal from ages 11 to 18 and she ignored it because she couldn't deal with the fact that I wasn't what she expected. I could have died. Of course my experiences are on the more extreme side of the spectrum. But my mother was nowhere near as controlling as your wife when I was 6. So you're right to be worried and you're right to call her out on her awful behavior. Harshness is acceptable in this situation. NTA. For overcompensating things, like the birthday party, can be taken as abusive. Your daughter has anxiety and cried, and your wife said, it's part of the experience? No, it's not. It's showing your daughter her feelings don't matter. That's more damaging than anything. She needs to listen to her kids, what they want and don't want. And she needs to respect it or they're going to have awful childhoods as well. Therapy is definitely needed here. I had an awful childhood myself, and never wanted to become my mother. But I went to therapy and got a handle on my own emotions and feelings so I could be a better parent to my children. She might be pissed at you for suggesting it, but she needs it. Otherwise, your oldest might start resenting her, and their relationship will get ruined beyond repair. NTA. Your wife is trying to live a part of life she missed out on vicariously through your children, and that's really unhealthy for them. They aren't her, and just because she would have loved these things at their age doesn't mean they do. Her inability to separate herself from them and see them as becoming their own people is something she needs to work through, and, based on her current status, therapy probably wouldn't hurt. NTA. And in actual fact, you need to put your foot down harder with your wife. Our oldest, 6, has severe anxiety. She's actually in therapy for it. As a result, she hates crowds. We had her birthday last January and she spent it huddled in a corner and cried through "Happy Birthday" after begging my wife not to make people sing. My wife shrugged it off and said it's part of the experience. Your wife tormented your mentally ill 6-year-old. You watched and did nothing to prevent this awful treatment or remove your distressed daughter from the upsetting situation her own mother was forcing her into on her own birthday. Let that sink in. This is the kind of shit that creates adults who refuse to celebrate their birthday or any major milestone in their lives because they just associate it with mom forcing trauma on them. Your wife needs to back off hard. And if you're not going to bat for your daughter every single time she needs you when she is being mistreated or smothered by your wife, then you are complicit. NTA. Though you probably could have handled it better if you did it sooner, like years sooner. My mom was like your wife's and my childhood was miserable. My brother was lucky in that he was a boy and mom didn't project onto him until he was older. But my birthday parties and life were all about what she wanted when she was a kid, and she didn't realize that. It made me anxious, angry, hurt, and convinced me that my mom loves her daughter but doesn't actually love Emmy at all. I'm 30 and she still hasn't gone to therapy for it because according to her she did her best to give us what she never had, when all she really did was teach me that unless I pretend to be like her, she cannot and will not care about anything to do with who I am for real. When I turned, I think, 11 years old, my mom threw me a birthday party with my small number of friends. For the party, she bought some small pieces of furniture to let everybody paint and do handprints, stencils, etc. on, made a cake and snacks, the whole nine. But when I tried to tell her none of this was what I wanted, such as the cake flavor, which was chocolate and has always been my least favorite, she started shouting at me about how I was ruining the party for everyone and how I was an ungrateful little bitch. Then she sent me to my room for the rest of the party. She had her perfect birthday party while I cried alone in my room in the dark. She doesn't remember anything but what a great party it was for her. And if I were to bring it up, she would first deny it and then admit it happened but insist I deserved it, that I'm remembering it wrong and I actually completely deserved how I was treated for trying ruin everyone's good time out of selfishness. Your wife does need therapy, but my friend, she needed it years and years ago. You needed to stop this when or before it started by getting her help. Because I guarantee this affects her more than just in regards to her parenting choices. Edited to fix punctuation and to add a clarifying party detail. NTA. I do think you could have approached it better. Calling her not a great mom will make a lot of people shut down. But this is a conversation that needs to happen. The kids will resent her as they get older and will distance themselves from her because she disregards their feelings. The one that hates dance will always remind mom how much she hated dance. The one with anxiety might want to stop celebrating birthdays because of what mom does. It's going to be difficult, very difficult, but you need to find a way to fix this before she wonders why her daughters don't want to spend time with her. NTA. Honestly, it doesn't sound like she's giving them the childhood she missed out on, but more vicariously living through them. Difference being, she's forcing things they vocally don't want. And as harsh as it sounds, she isn't being a good parent but forcing her wishes on them. Your wife's mother was bad in one way, and your wife seems so determined to avoid that she's becoming a bad parent in the opposite direction. Hopefully you can all seek out therapy and resolve the issue. But your wife definitely needs to cop on and listen to your children. Your wife sounds like my mom. She grew up poor and tried to do the things for me that she didn't get to do. But like your wife, she chose specific things that she wanted rather than asking me what I wanted. Which is all the difference in the world. It sounds like she's also massively insensitive to your older daughter's anxiety, which also needs to be treated. You have a good handle on this situation, and your wife needs therapy so she can get refocused here and be her best self and the great parent she can be if she addresses this before it goes further. NTA. She's overcorrecting from what she went through, and even though she has good intentions, it's not fair to hold your kids to that standard. They're individuals in a different situation, and she can't compare them to herself. If what she is doing is so good, why is her daughter crying and miserable? Isolates herself and is forced to do things she hates. Thinks her mother is a bully for forcing her. Doesn't trust her mom and feels unheard, unimportant when her pleas are dismissed. She is doing the same things to her children that her own mother did to her. Just uses a different approach to give them a miserable childhood. A lot of people want to have the picture-perfect moments they envisioned their whole lives. Kids, wedding day, you name it. The problem is that, by and large, those idealized versions of events are just that, ideals. You can try, but you can't control those around you to correspond with your hopes. And that trying often leads to reactions like your kids are having. NTA. I know your wife means well. Meaning well doesn't negate the effects of what she is doing. Kids are humans, not props in a fantasy. NTA. I'm 29 and barely talk to my mom. Partly because she made it clear that she doesn't like that I'm not the daughter she envisioned having. She also doesn't respect my autonomy even now I'm an adult. And I finally muted her messages, and it's been liberating. She cares much more about appearances than she does about me, and always has. That's the unfortunate truth. Forcing an anxious child into situations like that is abusive, and something I dealt with too. Turns out I'm autistic, and I absolutely resent her for it. Just last week she tried to force me into something that she wanted me to do, and I said no 4 times, eventually becoming very blunt. Because why should I have to say it 4 times? And her only response was, there's no need to be rude. This is your wife's future. If she doesn't change and respect that your daughters are independent beings and not extensions of herself. On the other hand, I am very close with my dad, who respects who I am and encourages me to do what makes me happy. She needs therapy, or your daughters will run once they have the chance. Have you asked her how she would feel if, when her mom forced her to do things that she didn't want to do? It might put it in perspective for her. NTA at all. She does need therapy to understand her childhood is very different from theirs. But I'm an honest believer in therapy for everyone to reconcile their past. Lol. Sounds like your communication is good with you both. Maybe you could do some light explaining to your kids about why mom does the things she does. NTA. Your wife is being just as bad by forcing her dreams, wishes for her childhood onto the kids. as her mom was for denying her. Your wife does need therapy. You probably also need couples therapy since this is causing probably pretty gigantic fights. GL. But stand your ground. Op. You're 50% responsible for that child. 2. If the daughter hates dance, put your foot down. Sincerely, the daughter forced into dance classes who still resents it 20+ years later. NTA. You are absolutely right. Please stand your ground and stand up for your kids. Your wife won't like it, but she does need therapy. Every kid is different and she needs to realize it. She may has good intentions, but in the end she hurt them one way or another by disrespecting the kid's individuality. Maybe suggest family therapy. She needs to hear what the kids are really saying and needs to learn to respect their boundaries. NTA. I'm gonna say your wife probably isn't trying to hurt your children, and you know that. You are definitely not overstepping or an asshole for protecting your daughters. An idea I thought that could be sweet. Does your wife ever talk about all the things she missed as a child? Maybe for her next birthday, throw her the birthday party she always wished she had, and do a bunch of activities that she wished she had done as a kid, and get your daughters involved as an extra treat. It won't solve it, but it might make her feel heard. NTA. I'm going to say it point blank. If your wife is acting like she cares more about vicariously living her ideal childhood through the kids than she does about the actual children, she's being a bad mom. If she really wants to be a good mom and give these kids the childhood they deserve, she needs therapy. How to raise an emotionally healthy child. Gottman. https www.gottman.com/parents/NTA. Protect your kids.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Haircast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.